Yes, we can call the meeting to order. It is 6:36 p.m. Rita, can you do the roll call for us?
Yes, happy to. Commissioner Mir,
Present.
Commissioner Heilman,
Present.
Commissioner Nishioka,
Present.
Commissioner Gunno,
Here.
Commissioner Bottenberg,
Present.
and there have been apologies by Vice Chair Varnes and Commissioner Banak, who is unable to attend this evening.
Okay. Commissioner Gunnar, can you lead us with the pledge?
Sure. Mike, there we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second this, Mark.
Is there discussion? There being no discussion, a motion has been made to move ahead with the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Okay. All right, motion passes. All right, now the approval of the minutes of the September 14th meeting, that seems like years ago. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? There being no discussion, we move on the motion to accept the minutes of September 14th as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Public comment. Mike, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Chair. It looks like we have, well, I'm actually not sure yet. Looks like we have 3 members of the public here with us this evening. If you would like to provide comment, please raise your hand. There is a raise hand button on your toolbar in Zoom. And we will call on you to provide comment. Margaret, Robin, or Sally, if anyone wants to provide comment, please click the raise hand button on Zoom. Okay, Chair, I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, let's move to the new business. Discussion of the senior services request for proposal. Rita, would you like to proceed with this?
Sure, I think Mike and I are going to do it in collaboration. I think, Mike, are you going to share screen, or while he's doing
Yes.
that, I'll just give you some background. So council has approved $85,000 for 2023 and 2024 towards senior programming in Sammamish. And so we have a very draft RFP that we've put together, and we're seeking your input as a commission as to what you'd like to add, remove, or elaborate on. So I think Mike is going to go through it. Both Mike and I are going to go through this. Yeah, Mike, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think from a process standpoint, for those of you who are on the commission in 2019, this will look very similar to the teen mental wellness RFP. You'll recall at that point, there were a couple teen overdoses due to fentanyl, and there was a strong push by council to procure some additional teen mental health supports. And so this commission went through the process of drafting an RFP, putting that out, and reviewing proposals that came in from nonprofits. And that resulted in us receiving a new service, a new counselor here at Crosspath Counseling, as well as some additional services in support of teen mental wellness. And so we're going to be following a very similar format here with this senior services RFP to kind of procure the senior services that the council has prioritized and has, as Rita mentioned, budgeted $85,000 per year in the upcoming biennial budget for. So through this proposal, basically, we're just trying to outline what we want to see from nonprofits in their proposal to us. Basically, what information does the commission need in order to be able to make an informed decision on who should be selected as our service provider for these senior services? Because ultimately the commission will be reviewing the proposals and providing a recommendation to council. So with that said, we can just kind of run through the RFP here. It's a pretty simple one. We've tried to make it as easy as possible, recognizing that the turnaround is somewhat quick. And as we know, many of our nonprofits don't have dedicated grant writers, and especially probably right now during the holidays. Oh, Nishina, yeah, please go ahead.
So Mike, is this 85,000, is it just for the services or does it include the rental cost for Beaver Lake Lodge as well?
That's a great question, Commissioner Muir. The lodge is going to be provided at no cost to whichever service provider is selected. So this is purely for the service provider to deliver the services.
That's great. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll get into the schedule a bit more on a subsequent page. And this was sent to the commission via email from Rita, I think at about 2 p.m. this afternoon. So if you want to follow along on your own personal device, you can find her email from earlier this afternoon. Starting up top, we have a brief introduction talking about what this RFP seeks to do, which is to solicit proposals from qualified nonprofit agencies to provide services at the Beaver Lake Lodge. We give a few examples of what programming might include, such as mental, physical, and social well-being of Sammamish seniors, and talks about the budget in each of the years, 2023 and 2024. Then we have the background section that provides a little bit of information, as I did in my introduction here, about how this came to be. You know, in early 2022, council approved that work plan priority for finding a location for senior programming in Sammamish, as we currently do not have a senior center or regular meeting location for seniors within our city limits. And we've identified the Beaver Lake Lodge as the preferred location. And through this RFP, we are seeking a nonprofit to deliver these services. And then we talk a little bit about the Beaver Lake Lodge location. This is basically pulled from our webpage that you can go to find out more information about how you can rent the lodge. It's about a 2,000 square foot main room and accommodate about 150 people, has a gas fireplace. It has a kitchen, it has tables for use, it has some storage space, restrooms, basically everything that you need. It's ADA accessible. It's in a very nice, serene location right there at Beaver Lake Park. Really couldn't ask for a much better location in Rita, in my opinion. The availability of the lodge is weekdays, Monday through Friday, between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. So when applicants are submitting proposals in response, they're basically they're proposing a schedule within that window. Those are the times that we've made available. And I see, yes, Commissioner Gunham.
Is the gas fireplace the only source of heat for the lodge?
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
I'm assuming not. The gas fireplace, I think, is more kind of nice to look at, but they definitely have heat, because I know we've had meetings there during the winter months. But that's a great question. I mean, I'm sure it's heated. There's no way that it cannot be heated, but
Thank you.
I'm pretty confident it is heated, because like Rita says, we've had staff meetings in there before, and I'm not sure I even recall the gas fireplace being on, but it was fairly warm in there. So we'll follow up with our parks folks on that one. And then additionally, we are proposing a mandatory tour, so that basically somebody from the organization that's submitting a proposal would have to tour the Beaver Lake Lodge before they'd be eligible to submit a proposal. And we scheduled that tour for the 12th. And we felt this was important because you really, I feel like, need to be able to see the space in order to submit a proposal that's realistic. Rita, maybe you could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think, I think for Mike and I, someone can like submit a proposal and it sounds really great, but until you actually see what the space looks like and what you can maybe do or not do, we feel like we would be remiss not to have a mandatory tour. And so the proposal is that we would be there, and then we would also have someone from Parks and Rec and Facilities to really talk about the logistics, right? So power sources, like, is there television access? What is the kitchen looking like? Restrooms and all those practical, like storage, that kind of thing. So I think, before we can get a robust proposal from an organization, I think it's very important for them to go and see the actual space. Yeah.
Thanks, Rita. Next up, we have some minimum requirements in order to be able to be considered for this RFP process. These first four are the same requirements that we include as part of our one-pager that goes in the ShareOne app. So if you submit a grant application, this is what you'll see, which is you have to be able to meet the city's minimum insurance requirements, which we've included as attachment A to this RFP. You have to be an approved 501c3 nonprofit, be willing to accept reimbursement for funds, which is a question we'll circle back around to, and regularly track and submit reports regarding services and demographics. And since we're requiring the mandatory tour, we've added that as one of the minimum requirements, is attending the tour of Beaver Lake Lodge. And, Commissioner Muir.
So this seems like a no-brainer, but I think it's important to be explicit that they should have some experience with senior programming. I mean, that should be a minimum requirement because it is so seniors focused, right?
Sure.
I mean, you would assume that that is like a no-brainer, but I don't think there's any harm in spelling it out.
Right. That's a great point. I think like we talk later on for proposal requirements about what they're proposing to do and also references. So further down, 8 references, include contact information for 3 references who can verify your nonprofit's ability to provide the services described in your proposal.
Okay.
So that's okay. So you feel like, Commissioner Mayor, that we should sort of spell it out more, or?
I mean, it depends on whether you want to include that in the minimum requirements. I mean, that's the basic threshold.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I felt like including it there would be helpful. Although, of course, the details will come in, in the proposal itself, but I don't know whether, because that could be an exclusionary criteria in a way, right? If they don't meet those minimum requirements, like, it doesn't make sense for them to apply. I don't know, what do the other commissioners think? It's just a thought I had.
I think it would, I guess it would, I'm fine with putting it in minimum requirements because I think absolutely they should have experience. But I guess we would have to figure out like quantitatively what that minimum is. Is it like by years, like a minimum of 1 year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? Like if we're going to put something, I think we should be specific of what that minimum requirement is. And I would be okay with not, but I do think the proposal needs to be beefed up a little bit in terms of what we want to see in a proposal, or what we want to see in an organization that we would be giving $85,000 per year. I mean, it's a sizable grant amount compared to our other grants. So, I think it's reasonable to put it as a minimum, but then I think we have to figure out what is the threshold minimum amount. I have a question about process. And I don't mean to be, I don't want to pick on anybody. It's not like I'm picking on anyone, but I just, for the integrity of the process, I just wonder for this RFP, if folks who are involved with the senior centers that may be applying, whether we should state that, name it, and just be transparent about that. And also whether, I don't know, is there, I also want to just check, is there anything in the city charter about that? Like put whoever drafts the RFP, can they be also an applicant? Is there anything, any kind of rules or anything about that? I just want to make sure that we are compliant.
So
If
like-
there may not be any, and that's
Like a
fine.
conflict of interest thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oops.
I think in our bylaws, I don't think we necessarily have that
Okay.
spelled out.
You might not, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
just check, and I'm
Yeah.
fine if we don't, but I wanted to check to see if there was anything about that.
Do you think, Commissioner Nishioka, that that's more relevant for when, as a commission, you decide who that provider is
Um,
going to be, or even in this process now?
I don't know. I mean, I think it might, I think it's fine. I think we have a lot of folks who are not in that, and there's a check there. So, but I do want to, I just want to name it and just like address it. If, as long as we have a policy or we make a statement that this is what it is, and we feel like we have enough perspectives. What I don't want is someone to challenge it later who doesn't get funded and saying, well, the person who, you know, these folks were on the board of this organization and they were part of the ones who put together the minimum requirements of the RFP, and they're the only ones who can meet those minimum requirements, you know, something like that. I don't want it to be us to be able to be challenged. So if we name it and we're transparent and we say, no, we feel good about it, it's fine. And there's enough perspectives and we're fine at this part. And maybe we want to say as, you know, that at the time of reviewing proposals, we would ask that those folks recuse themselves or something like that. If they had actually been involved in writing the proposal, then I think that that's fine. I just think it would be best to name it. That's what conflict of interest policies are for. It's not that conflicts are bad. It's just that you have a policy that you treat every conflict the same. And that, you know, it's transparent. So anyway, just thought I would raise that. I honestly feel like our commission is has integrity and that there's no issue, but I don't want us to be susceptible to potential other folks who may not feel the same way, or may have, if we don't name it, then they're like, well, you guys, you know, knew this one, but no one said anything or whatever. So. How do other folks feel? If you're good with it, then we can just say we're good with it and that's fine.
Commissioner McGono?
I don't have a problem at this time. I am involved with the senior group in Sammamish. If a proposal is submitted from that group, I will not partake or participate in voting or for support for any of the proposals that come in. But at this stage, I don't see a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do other folks feel?
I appreciate you raising the issue, Jody. I guess where I would draw somewhat of a line is all of us are advocates for, I mean, part of the reason we're on the commission is because we have awareness and advocacy for different groups that we care about and others that we may not be aware of. So I think having folks that are aware and advocates is a good thing, but I appreciate, particularly when there's not a direct financial connection, I don't have an initial concern, but I agree, just laying that out initially is a good thing. But again, we all have things that we advocate for, and some of them are more known and some of them are maybe not quite as, readily apparent. So I don't have concern, particularly when there's not direct financial benefit.
So I agree with the approach that Stan is proposing. I'm just, Rita, did I understand you correctly when you said that there isn't a conflict of interest policy?
You know what, Commissioner Mayor, while you guys are chatting, let me quickly look at the bylaws very quickly. Yeah.
Because, at our foundation, we have to regularly sign a conflict of interest form, for providing information about the boards we are on, the commissions we are on and all of that. Like that, we have to do that on an annual basis. So I was just wondering whether there's a policy or not. And if there isn't, there should be one, I think.
Which I know we're getting off track because I know we're here to talk about this particular RFP, but I agree with you, Nishina. I don't think there is one, but yeah, Rita, double check, because I think you're right. We've never signed, like I'm on a variety of boards and, well, I'm on one, sorry, not a variety. I'm usually on at least one board at a time. And then of course, I work for a nonprofit. And so those are things that should be disclosed. For sure.
So there is a conflict of interest clause, Article 6. If an actual or perceived conflict of interest exists that affects the work of the commission, it is each member's responsibility to openly describe the issue and refrain from any subsequent commission participation, deliberation, or voting on the subject.
Okay. Well, I think that Stan just disclosed it, which is exactly in line with our policy. And then I don't know if we're voting on this. Are we voting on this?
So we're going to be receiving input from you towards the RFP, and once we get agreement, then the hope is to send it to council for their review. And get it out to folks.
So, I mean, I feel comfortable with Stan and anyone else's participation in discussion. I don't feel like we're voting to give out money at this stage. So I'm fine with, I think it, like you said, Mark, that it is helpful to have folks who have experience in a particular area where all of us bring experience in various nonprofit, nonprofit experience. So I think it is helpful. So my feeling is, I think it's good for a conversation here, and then staff can go back, take our input and put together the RFP, and then submit it to council. Unless we're voting.
I don't think we have to vote on this, do we?
There's no formal vote.
Then I think it's fine for at this stage of game. So I appreciate you finding that conflict of interest policy. I think it's great that Stan disclosed it. I think if there's anybody else that they should disclose it now too. And then that way we'll have it on the record and everybody knows. And that's the best way to.
Everybody knows that I have been doing the community conversations for the current 2.5 years for the Sammamish seniors and providing the communications through email.
Great.
And I'm not compensated.
So I think we're fine as long as we have those two disclosures. Anybody else? And then we can move on.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for indulging me.
Absolutely. So where we left off, it sounded like there was some interest in potentially modifying this minimum requirements section to include some sort of a requirement that the organization applying has some experience in running senior programming. And there was discussion about if we did include that criteria, what kind of threshold would we set? as in terms of how many years of experience, or what would that be? Is that something the commission wants to see included? And if so, what are we thinking that threshold would be?
Can I speak up? I think that having it in the proposal, written the way that it's written, is adequate enough. If you do it in the minimum requirement, what are you looking for? Are you looking for, are you doing Meals on Wheels? Are you doing food? Are you doing outreach? I mean, I'd rather see it in the proposal and have the nonprofits tell us what they intend to do, when they intend to do it, versus setting a minimum. They're going to describe their nonprofit anyway and how they perform and seek out references. So I think that's adequate. That's my opinion.
So the reason I had suggested including it in the minimum requirements was that it is possible that some nonprofits may want to branch out into senior programming and may want to submit a proposal, but it may be a waste of their time if we were to determine, like while reviewing the proposals, that they don't have enough experience, then they would be wasting their time, because I don't think, like, especially working with this particular group, unless you have experience working with seniors, I don't think an organization can do a good job. I honestly don't think so. It's a very specific group. So if you don't have that minimum threshold, like, organizations can certainly propose that they want to expand their programming. They probably don't work with seniors, but would like to add that programming or something along those lines. And it would just be a waste of their time as well as ours, because we also have to review all the proposals.
Mhm.
I can appreciate that.
I'm fine with putting in a minimum of like 2 years. How does that feel for folks?
Well, it's measurable. That makes good sense.
Yeah, I would think 2 years would be a minimum, actually.
And just to get some clarity, is that to have 2 years of experience of working with the senior community or with the senior programming? Because we have nonprofits that may work with the senior program community but don't offer programming. So
That's a
That's
good
would
point.
you say it's programming or the community that you want to have?
programming, the programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that wording, Mike.
Yeah, I like the programming as well.
Because Rita, you're absolutely right. I mean, they could be working with seniors on homelessness, on other issues, but not specifically like focusing on, senior related programming.
And in that regard, wasn't actually clear from even the introduction, what are we thinking, like social programming, like, where their main thing is for them to gather and have activities, or are we thinking case management? Like, I wasn't sure what we were looking for actually, or is it any of the above, and then we'll just see what we get and what we want, and that'll tell us what we want, or do we have something specific in mind?
I think council was seeking more, since they're providing a location, they were looking more toward Sammamish having a senior center now.
Like in activities,
Activities, events.
Traditional. Mhm.
I
Well,
think
case management is traditional as well. It's just a different
Yeah,
type of
Or
service.
traditional senior center, such as what you
Okay,
see
senior
in Redmond and Issaquah.
I will say, Commissioner Nishioka, Mike and I sort of talked about whether we become a little bit more prescriptive, or we keep it kind of open, and we kind of I feel like this is an opportunity to, like, we don't know what folks are going to bring, and so just that, to get that sort of innovation, that wide varied, or programming, and if we sort of said, oh, we want this, this, and this, I don't know. So again, that's the commission, we've left it very kind of open, like
Yeah.
social, mental, and physical well-being.
So I don't know. On the one hand, I like being non-prescriptive and letting the community tell us what they see the need is for, what services they see are needed. But on the other hand, I just want to make sure that if the council or who put this together, or we have an idea of what we want, like both Stan and Joyce said they're thinking senior center activities, then we should prescribe, because what if we get a bunch of proposals that's for, case management, and that's not what we were asking for, or that's not what we all had in mind. So I just want to check assumptions, I guess. Are we prepared to get whatever comes in the door and leave it up to them to tell us what they think the community needs? And maybe they are likely closer to the community, so maybe they are in a good place to tell us what they think community needs and how they're addressing. And if so, then we should ask that question in the proposal. Or do we all have a perspective of what we expect, which is, it sounds like from Stan and Joyce, they have a perspective that they're expecting senior center type activities. And is that what the council was thinking when they allocated this money? Because then if they are, I don't want us to be disappointed and also fund something that is not what we want to fund. So I guess it's, it could be one or the other.
And
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of leaving it open, because like a senior center can also provide case management, assistance with budget, food needs, things like that. So I don't want to restrict. I'd rather see what comes in. Me personally.
So I would ask along the same line, what were council's, what moved them to approve this funding, and what have they stated that they would like to see as outcomes? And then are there programs, are there peer cities that we look at as that's what we aspire to be able to accomplish? And then what are the gaps that we see? And of course, Stan and Joyce are, I think, definitely more knowledgeable than I am, but are we looking for regional gaps? Are we looking for specifically Sammamish gaps? And what does that point us toward? Because each of the cities on the east side are somewhat unique, but I think we can also learn from each other.
But we've had several conversations with the other senior centers over the last few years, and seeing what programming is important to the people in their locale, and also having surveys as to what draws what. And as Stan has talked to the kind of educational things that are ongoing in Snow Valley and Mount Si, the various program activities that are up there at the Redmond and in Issaquah, the degree of having fitness here and there, having planned activities, having discussion groups, having book clubs and such, similar to senior centers, I guess, everywhere.
And I do see some reference to DEI. I know at the North Bellevue Community Center, I mean, there's quite a bit of work with, always going to use the wrong name, but with Spanish-speaking seniors and Russian-speaking seniors. So is there something along the line of language access? And what do we see as the gap and the need?
Dan?
Yeah, I have a question. Mike, you were probably in the council meeting when they discussed and approve the funding. Do you know what the discussion was around, why they decided they needed the additional funding?
Yeah, I think the impetus for the funding was really in hearing from some of our senior populations, the fact that there is no senior center in Sammamish, and there's really no identified meeting place for seniors in Sammamish outside of the senior center. And so in lieu of that, there was I guess there seemed to be a gap to be filled, and this funding was intended to sort of fill that gap. But in talking with the council about this budget proposal came in a little bit late, and what we told the council was that this would be going towards senior programming at the Beaver Lake Lodge, and that there were some questions about what is programming, what do we mean by the word programming. And so there was kind of a similar discussion that we've had here about do we leave that open to interpretation? Do we leave that open to our nonprofits to tell us what they feel is the best approach? Or do we become a little bit more prescriptive in defining what we want? But I think where we went with that was that, by bringing this proposal to the commission, we would have that discussion about what services the commission, in your years of experience, thought would be the most appropriate. And whether or not we need to be more prescriptive or not is something that we could discuss here and come back to the council with a recommendation. So in my sense, and maybe others who have participated in the conversations feel differently, it wasn't quite completely defined at the council level, but I think it was kind of in line of just providing some form of a kind of a senior center light, as we don't have that location here in Sammamish, but the specifics weren't, like I said, defined. So I don't know if that's probably not super helpful, but that's kind of my take. And Rita, if you have a different recollection, please do feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. There was no specificity, just a sense of like they know that there is a demand and a need for senior programming, and what that looks like. There was no sort of like details around that. So they're definitely ceding to the commission and their input.
My suggestion is that we can leave it general senior service program, but put in like activities designed to improve, something like may include activities designed to improve, such as a senior center. So it's a may, but I do sense, well, you have it in the background, there's no senior center or regular meeting location. So I think,
and I see it in the introduction and explanation.
well, the introduction doesn't say senior center, but the background does say senior center. So I do think that I'm glad that it's there, because I do think that's kind of where this has come out. And I feel like it'd be better to be transparent about that. Not that we have to determine what does a senior center, what specific services, there might be services in addition to what we think of as traditional senior services. Like, there might be book club, and there might be, I don't know, whatever, puzzles or games or yoga or whatever. And a group and I think if we make it general enough, they could have that. And then maybe they are seeing in the community that those services are good, but it's also a good time to do screening for vaccinations or something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out. So I think if I do want to put something in there, that's a suggestion that it may include senior center type activities, like what people think of, because I do kind of feel like that's the expectation of most folks who have been part of this process. I know it is for the commission, for some of the commissioners. We're hearing that it was also said at the council. And so I just want to be clear about, communicate that to the community, that is a possibility, or that's what we're kind of thinking of. But I do like the idea of it being broad enough, because I do think that these organizations are closer to the community than we might be. Like Stan and Joyce are close, but I'm certainly not. And Marcus said he's not. And so I do think leaving room for them to tell us, because maybe if they have experience working with seniors and senior center type activities, et cetera, they know more than us what the seniors need. And there may be something in addition to senior center type activities that, is screaming out to be part of this, that they want to provide. So
Jody,
yeah,
in the introduction, we did say programming may include activities with a breakdown, mental, physical, and social well-being.
right.
Family seniors. So do we take that?
I think it's fine. I think you could say may include activities designed for mental, physical, social well-being of Sammamish seniors. And then you could write I don't know, you could play with the language, but something like and may include senior center type activities. I don't know. I'm not a person who's well versed in this area, and so I don't know how that term is used, if it's used, but I do have a sense that I'm hearing over and over again, and it's in the background, that there's no senior center or regular meeting place. So there is a sense I'm feeling from both the council and the commission that there's an expectation that we want a gathering place, as opposed to case management, which is very individual. So that's where I'm just worried that we all have this a little bit of expectation.
So do
And
we-
then we get a proposal that's like one-on-one case management. It's not what we're thinking. And so I want to make sure that we communicate to the community that if that's part of what we're thinking of, that it's there.
So
do we-
Jody, because we are saying that the activities would happen at the Beaver Lake Lodge. I mean,
Yeah, I think you're right.
one can make the assumption that it's senior center programming, but I agree with you that it's still important to be explicit, because I don't know. I mean, I'm making that connection, but I'm not sure everyone would.
So-
Clearly that implies, the fact that it'll be at the Beaver Lake Lodge, like it implies that you can't really be doing case management, or, I mean, it's not such a huge.
You
space that you could, but then you would not be able to serve too many people, right? Because
Right,
it's
you need privacy.
yeah.
Maybe programming may include senior center activities.
So do we get rid of the word may?
No, I think may
And
is
say-
fine. I think just
Say
say senior
programming
center.
will include activities that are designed to improve mental, physical, and social well-being.
I'm fine with that, but I also kind of think we could just say programming may include senior center activities.
The key
Designed
is
to-
if we say may, that also includes it may not.
True.
If we say it will, then it's restrictive enough that it has to include these activities. And there's nothing wrong with case management in these activities, because it's, it deals with their mental well-being, possibly their physical well-being as well.
Yeah,
But is that the intent though? I don't think case management is really the intent based on what I've heard everyone say.
That's not the
exists.
focus, but it
It's
is something that can take place. For example, if I had food needs and I'm going to the senior center and I bring it up with staff or whoever's working there, they can take me aside and help me deal with that, which is a case management issue. It's not an in-depth case management issue. If I'm having budget problems, we can meet separately and set up a budget for me.
Mhm.
So it is a little bit, but it's not over the top. It's not mental health counseling and that type of thing. It's a referral type.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe
We just have-
I'm focusing too much on it, because the background does talk about not having senior center. Joyce, what do you think?
I was thinking that the Snow Valley is a good example of a senior center that has social workers coming in and meeting regularly with people, as well as nurses and what is a foot doctor called? And, this is typically a fee for service that's, paid by the individual getting the help. And this is also offered in several others. The social worker down at Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank has been serving the Issaquah Senior Center on occasion with resource information.
I know my veterans group used to go into the Issaquah Senior Center and discuss caregivers and what can be covered by the VA and helping file for claims for veterans.
What if we do this? What if we say may include activities designed to improve and provide a place for seniors to gather and connect or something like that? Because that's the piece, right? It's not, we don't want to be prescriptive of what the activities are, but we want to have a space for them to come together and connect.
Mhm.
So that way you can have those sorts of services, but we definitely want to have a place for them to be able to meet and connect as a group.
Right.
So include the language. Program may include activities designed to improve mental, physical, and provide a space for seniors to connect as a community or something like that.
But they're not providing the space, we are, the
Well,
city is.
well, yeah, no, okay, so maybe not and provide a space, but and provide activities that promote community connection or connection among seniors or something like that.
Provide an opportunity for seniors to come together and connect.
Mm-hmm.
Are we
I don't think we
getting
have to-
into the weeds?
I was going to say, we don't have to wordsmith it tonight. I
Yeah,
think
we
we
don't have to
have
wordsmith it, but you guys get it.
the
Get the
commission's
point.
intent, definitely. So,
Cool.
okay, so coming back down, we talked about the minimum requirements, and we can always revisit that. There are additional minimum requirements we would like to include. Following that, we have the proposal requirements, and start by having them describe their proposal and talk about their plan for providing services, such as the days and times per week that they propose to deliver the services, describing the types of programming that they intend to offer, as well as their plan for staffing and supervising the individual staffing the senior center or senior programming. Similar to our normal grant process, we ask about accessibility. How are they ensuring that they're accessible to Sammamish residents? How will the services address DEIB? How soon can they begin implementing the services? Hopefully relatively quickly after council approves the contracts if they choose a chosen firm. The outcomes, how are they going to measure the success of the programs? And we're asking them to specify the metrics that they'll be using. Talk about their qualifications and their demonstrated ability to provide the services, as well as 3 references who can verify their ability to do so. And then finally, a breakdown of their budget for the proposed services, including specifying funding sources, whether that's the city, the agency, or other sources. And that's kind of the meat of it. There's also just talking about the selection that the Human Services Commission will review the proposals and provide a recommendation to council. And then we have a very draft schedule. It's a little bit optimistic right now. We may need to update it, but for the purposes of discussion, we would potentially release the RFP next week, assuming that council had no significant changes to it. Tour the Beaver Lake Lodge on the 12th. Questions due on the 16th, and we'll post answers to the questions received at that point online. The deadline would be the first week of the new year on Thursday at 2 p.m. And then the commission would review the proposals at their first meeting of the new year on January 11th. So a little bit of a quick turnaround there, but we're not expecting that we'll receive a ton of proposals. So hopefully it's not too much effort to make that turnaround, and then potentially have the council review the commission's recommendation and approve a contract at their meeting on February 7th. The rest of this is fairly boilerplate. We don't really need to talk too much about it. We have some information about minimum insurance requirements, and then include a map of the lodge floor space just for planning purposes. So I think most of our discussion here tonight, if there's any further, will revolve around these 2 sections. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to the chair for any discussion.
Okay, is there other discussion about any of the things that we have tackled so far? Commissioner Mayor?
So Joyce, the seniors are often very isolated and have physical challenges sometimes and are hard to reach. So I think that having, asking the organizations that will submit a proposal to be very explicit about how will they do outreach to this population is particularly important. I don't see that explicitly pulled out, and I think it is very important because it's a hard to reach group and is
It
often
is.
very isolated.
And I think it's getting more isolated back.
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're seeing the re-engagement issues with Rotary, with church, all sorts of organizations. I attended a Thanksgiving dinner across the street with my daughter's in-laws. On Sunday, I tested positive for COVID. Everybody at that dinner was 100% vaccinated. So I'm isolated again. That's going to make me a little fearful for going out in public again. It's just the accessibility angle too on Beaver Lake Lodge. We could talk about the fact that community van and community ride don't cover that area. We can talk about the confusion with trying to get into an access metro schedule. But if people can't drive, how do they get there? The insurances are spelled out here as far as cars that bring people, auto liability and such. So accessibility is going to be a problem. We don't have newspapers in our city. We don't have a city newsletter anymore.
Mhm.
We don't have a place to be able to, put our information on a signboard in front of Boys and Girls Club, or East Lake High School, or any of the spots. I mean, flyers, the city communications be available to us to be able to get the word out, since it's going to be a city solution for isolated or any older adult. And we're talking the ages 50 plus too. It's not just old people at 75.
No, I think that's an important point both you and Nishina make. I think that we should put that in that either in the logistics of the description, to talk about how will they engage and do outreach for the senior community. And then I would add another layer on that. What I wrote down was, what is their connection? Do they have an existing connection to senior populations? Like maybe some of them are, whoever is going to apply already is in the community and, has relationships at churches and other places. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Mhm.
So I think I would want to add some kind of question around that, about how would they engage the senior community? What are their current connections with the senior community, and what is their outreach plan?
Mhm.
It's all kind of wrapped up together.
Makes good sense.
Commissioner Nishioka, I've listed them out here separately, but we can think about combining those because I would agree they're kind of one and the same. Yeah.
And I think I would want to put something in there about asking them what they see as, we asked this in the other RFP, I'm pretty sure, asking them what they see is the greatest need, or to make a statement about why they're providing whatever service that they know that they've heard from community. What I would want as an answer is something like, we have done surveys, or we have talked to seniors and this is what they say they wanted, or whatever. Like they kind of explain to us how they know this is a need. We're all guessing. Stan and Joyce might know, would know better than me, but I'm just sort of guessing because that's not what it's what I would expect, but I don't know it's true. And we want, just like all of our other providers, they're the closest to the community, so they should know, and kind of explaining that to us. What do they know? So something about the need, or.
And I think
One thing I was wondering about, because we have the space at the Beaver Lake Lodge, would that in itself not limit engagement, because if there was a hybrid option, because some people just are physically not able to be there all the time. So by having this physical space, which would be great for a lot of people, but not having some hybrid option might actually be restrictive for some seniors, I feel. But then on the other hand, what I've heard from like many of my colleagues who have elderly parents is that their facility with, with even like joining Zoom meetings or any virtual meetings is not like,
So challenging.
it's challenging sometimes because they just don't have that facility with using computers or laptops, etc. So just I think one has to keep all that in mind, because just like with just physical programming at the senior center, I think you will just be restricting it to physically able individuals, who are more outgoing. Those are the types of people you will find at the center.
I think an ongoing survey would be good too, a citywide survey. I know that the King County Council member, Sarah Perry, has wanted to do one for enveloping all seniors, as have been done in some parts of the county already. And seeing what their wants are.
Hopefully the accessibility question, we'll get to that when they answer that question.
Yeah.
We'll get to those who are not physically able, hopefully. I'm a little bit worried about the equity question. I think that diversity, equity, inclusion, they're key words that we throw around, but I don't know. I'm just like, are we talking about, I guess they can define how they want to use that word, those words, but are we talking about staff? Are we talking about community members? Are we talking about both? It's a little bit vague, but I guess they can just address it as like, are we talking about diversity and equity? Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too much in the weeds, and I don't want it to be too hard of an application either. So feel free to edit me if I'm getting too specific and it's making the application too hard. I want to make the application. I don't want to make the application too hard. Low barrier, hopefully.
Chair Bottenberg, can I just bring your attention to on the requirements above on point 3, be willing and able to accept reimbursement for funds. So as a commission, like we've always traditionally, like, nonprofits, we say we're going to give you this much money, and then they have to show us, the service units and how many residents they've served before we actually reimburse them on a quarterly basis. Would you like to keep that same system that we've always traditionally done, whereby they have to prove that they've provided those services and then we reimburse?
I don't know what the situations are with the applicants. Some of them will have to add staff to be able to do things. Some of them will have to be spreading their staff too much to be able to provide anything that and to have funds up front to start a project. This makes a lot of sense.
Are we required to do reimbursement contracts? It sounds like you're saying we don't need to do reimbursement.
Well, I know that like traditionally for the last 6 years, we've always done reimbursement, and that's just, public dollars, taxpayer money. And that's what we've always done. I don't know if we legally, if we're, that, Mike, are we able to do upfront? I know I've never seen it. I've only seen reimbursement.
Well, for the first 15 years, we know that there was an upfront.
Yeah, the only caveat I have to that is that there have been instances where we as a commission, you guys have been like, this is a great program, and we've ended up not giving them any money because they haven't been able to provide those service units or those residents served.
But we
So
have nonprofits that we give money to that don't have to provide numbers.
and
Some of
that's
the
just
housing
for,
programs.
yeah, that's just for homelessness. That's the only, yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but does it apply across the board? Do we have that option across the board?
Just so as far as like service units and residents served, it's only for homelessness. That's the only area where we don't reimburse according to whether they've fulfilled their service units or not.
I guess my
Mike?
question is that written in city policy? Or is it just a policy?
I can go back to 2015 when I first was nominated to my term on the task force there. And it had been, the whole decision-making had been within the council led by Melanie Andrews, the city clerk. And the process from the very beginning was to give upfront funds because the city wasn't providing the services, and this was to get the services started. When the council decided that they wanted to get out of the business of deciding that, they made this task force happen. And it was a 2-year program when we moved into this whole reimbursement deal.
My only concern is you're going to have nonprofits who are going to apply, who it's going to take a little bit of time to gear up to get the numbers going for participation. And are we going to prevent them from getting refunded to be able to pay salaries or whatever to get started?
I will
So-
note this. I don't believe there's, so for our normal grant program, as I mentioned on the Share One app, when a nonprofit goes into apply for our biennial grant program, there is this statement on here that you have to be willing and able to accept reimbursement for funds. So that's kind of our policy for our baseline 23-24 grants that went through the normal Share One app process. But there's nothing written elsewhere that technically specifies we have to go with this reimbursement model. It's just, as Rita's mentioned, since Rita and I have worked on human services, it's the method that we've chosen to use. And it's the method that I think all of our peer cities use for their biennial grant programs, the reimbursement basis, just to ensure that the services are being delivered. And, but this was a discussion point with the council. And I think it was something they wanted the commission to consider, was whether or not it made sense for this process.
So are they saying that they want us to consider this ongoing for all of our processes? Or are they saying just specifically for the senior contract?
To get it started.
It would just be for this, because we have already, we've already funded the other programs through our biennial grant program and specified that the terms are on a reimbursement basis. So this would kind of be a one-off thing.
But would it be setting precedents so that the next round we would be able to change it for the others?
I think that's a discussion that the commission could have.
To the Parks Department, as it is in other cities, that it is a contract service out of parks.
What? I'm sorry. Did you say it's a contract services out of parks and not our human services department?
In the Redmond and Issaquah and Bellevue and
Oh, I see.
Seattle, the Parks Department has the contracts with the organizations that are servicing at senior centers.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are not reimbursement contracts. So I guess my question would be, I'm all for not being reimbursement. Being a nonprofit, I hate reimbursement contracts because you have to be able to upfront pay for staffing and stuff when you don't have money to do, you're not getting money from it until later. So I'm all for it, but I do question the integrity again of a process that's different for this than it is for our other contracts. And so if we're saying, yes, we can do this ongoing, like we're going to start now, and then the next process is going to be like this too, or we can at least consider it, then I'm all for it. But if we're not, and all the other contracts we do have to be reimbursement, but we're making one exception for the senior center, I would question the integrity of that. I don't understand why that is. I'm all for it again, for it to do for all of our contracts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense to me that we would just do it for one contract and not for everybody else.
The original conversation was held with Sammamish Parks and Recreation to provide additional activity or activity that was focused to adults, senior adults, ages 50 or 60 plus, as it has for the youth programs, which of course we know are good. And that was where it originally started in conversation.
So you're saying the Parks Department has a contract with youth organizations and they don't do reimbursement contracts? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know the.
No, that,
figure it was the YMCA
sorry.
is.
Yeah. So this is unique, right? So this is exciting for us because this is like the first time that Human Services, like councils, tasked you guys as a commission to like come up, look at the RFP, look at the applications that come in, and then Parks. It's like this little marriage we have. So it's Human Services, but Parks are more like the back end logistics. They'll be at the tour. They have the site, and they'll be able to talk about how often the loos are serviced and all the rest of it. And as far as the Parks Department, they don't fund any youth groups as such. They have a youth board, but as that actual group, they don't reimburse a group as such.
Okay.
And during COVID, there were those beautiful entertainers and magicians and origami things that were promoted to out of Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, those are one-off instances, like a one-off performance, I'm assuming. And again, I don't know if they give, if someone's doing a juggling act, whether they give the money before or once they've juggled. I'm not quite sure, but yeah.
So I think kind of what I'm hearing is that this may be a policy discussion to have in advance of our next biennial grant program, because at this point in the 2023-2024 grant program, the reimbursement model has been specified as the way that the contracts are going to be moving forward. And so if there's, I guess, I'm hearing the point that it may not make sense to do something different for this process than we do for all of our other grants that are managed through Human Services.
That's just my perspective. I'm open to hearing differing perspectives. So what do other folks think?
I agree with you, Jody. I don't like the reimbursement, but because we've been using it until we go through another grant cycle, I don't think we should change it.
Anybody else? What do you guys think? Nishina, what do you?
I think we should have a consistent policy. So I agree with you, Jody, on this. That although I'm not a fan of this approach, but since that's been a consistent approach, I don't like I there's no justification for not doing it for this particular grant process. So for that reason, just for the sake of consistency, I do think we should probably continue with this. And if we want to revisit it entirely for all the city grant making, that's a different thing. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I'm comfortable with that.
Joyce?
Council can decide to.
What was that, Joyce?
I said the council can also weigh in on this.
Okay. One thing I thought about adding, moving on, is in number 2. We say be a state approved 501c3 nonprofit org. Should we also add or fiscally sponsored by a state approved 501c3 non-tax exempt nonprofit org or corporation? Because we do allow that, right? Rita, they can be fiscally sponsored.
Yes,
Okay.
great catch.
That's why she's a lawyer.
Can I also, I'm sorry for like, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Someone we spoke to our parks director earlier, and so she brought up like, do we have to, like the whole intent of this money is to do this programming, and then what if like someone comes along and then charges like $50, for them to come in? Like the intent would be like they come and have services, they're not paying unless it's for maybe food. So like, I mean, do we have to call that out? I mean, I would like to just get your thoughts on that.
Are you talking about like fees for?
Yeah, like
fees
we
for
haven't,
fitness classes?
yeah, like we haven't like sort of called out like, is the intent that like, there's this money and then people can just drop in and do all these things? What if they charge an entrance fee? Like, do we want to say, no, we don't want that? Or do we have to be a little bit more specific on that? Or I just wanted to, Mike and I would love your thoughts on that.
Whether or not the activities that they offer through this grant funded program are completely free, or whether there's the ability to charge for certain things,
Exactly.
whether that's food or one-off events that they put on.
My
So
feeling
if
is
you're
that
hiring a fitness instructor for two sessions a week that costs $50, you cannot have the participants in that or who signed up for that, registered for it, pay the $3 each for that, or is this what you're suggesting?
that's what he's asking. Can we allow them to charge a fee for various
What
things?
the other senior centers do.
I mean, if the programming is really broad, like Joyce was saying, like if they were to invite podiatrists and others, like if they were to offer any kind of medical program, like services, or at least bring in medical experts, then I don't think the center could cover all of that with $85,000.
I agree.
Certain things, and especially for the elderly community, like if there is, especially on anything health or more medical focused, there could be a cost associated with those services.
Yeah, I agree. I think 85,000 is really
services.
staffing and some supplies. So I think my feeling is that we should leave it up to them. But I would want to hear from them what kind of fees they would be charging. Like, are they going to charge full rates, like full fitness center rates, $300 a month or whatever it is, or is it going to be $3 or whatever? So that would be in their proposal, I would assume, when they do the cost breakdown of their expenses and their revenues. But
I think we can call that out specifically so that they make sure to address that in their proposal.
yeah. I don't think we should restrict it so that they don't get paid. They can't charge though, because then you're really restricting services. Like, what if there is some kind of special thing that the seniors really want to bring in somebody? They really want it. They want, I don't know, whatever it is, a doctor to come in and do something. And then we have to pay like a minimum or something. It would preclude that.
Do we, where you have costs? Should we do something to say for participants?
Again, I don't think we should prescribe it. They should tell us what they need to do.
No, what we're asking for a breakdown in the budget for proposed services. Is that a breakdown in cost for participants that they're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a full budget, they'll say, oh, we're going to do all of these programs and it's going to cost us X amount. And we have $85 from the city. And maybe we have, so much money from Issaquah or whatever. And then we're going to charge, activity fees might be, for the annual year might be, we expect to get $5,000 in fees for services. That'll be part of their budget in terms of the revenue side. And then that's where we can ask them, oh, what is the fees for? How much are you charging?
Mhm.
They may
Yeah.
say, no, we have it all covered by all these government contracts and private foundations, so we don't need to.
Should we ask for that up front? Is
Yeah,
my
that,
point.
but we are asking for it in a breakdown of the budget.
Okay,
So shall we just, sorry,
Go ahead.
no,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Chair, go ahead. It's your meeting, sorry.
Just gonna ask, is there any other that you want to suggest here?
Question for myself. Do we have any thoughts on whether or not we want to require a minimum level of service? For example, providing these services on average 2-3 days per week at a minimum, or do we leave it up to them to determine what works within their budget and capacities?
And just sort of adding on to what Mike was saying, this is going to be available year round. So even when kids are on vacation, this is going to be a year round space for seniors. Just to give you some background there. And
I think
currently,
we
it's-
let them define it.
okay.
I
Personally.
do, I think that if you have the availability of the lodge, if you think that that's what we want, and that's sort of a minimum thing is that they have year-round services, we might want to put that describe, that we expect year-round services, that this program, that the senior center or whatever is going to be year-round.
And
We don't
then,
want to put that if that's what the expectation is.
and Commissioner Shioka, so if we say year round, so we're not going to give specificity of like, we want this many days or this many hours, we're just going to say year round. Is that what I'm hearing?
If that's what we want to do, yeah, I mean, I kind of think they should tell us what their programs is, and you do ask them for their logistics description and proposed schedule days of time, so we'll know what they're proposing.
So should we call it out in the introduction, like the background thing? To provide
be a-
year-round programming?
It could be a minimum requirement. They have to have the ability to provide year-round programming. If that works for everyone.
I'd put it in the minimum requirements.
Other comments, anybody?
Do we want to say the ability? I may have the ability to do it, but I might not do it.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Should we be a little more restrictive? And yeah, say you will do it.
Then it would be just provide activities year-round. Or proposal should include services year-round for a year-round, on a year-round, I don't know.
We'll wordsmith
You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So what is the next step? We see a clean version and we circulate it, or we just let it go?
We can get a clean version here, probably out to the commission tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And if you have a chance to take a look and add any additional comments, then by the end of day tomorrow, perhaps we can get it out to council at that point. And then we'll kind of leave it in council's hands. If they have any questions, comments, or concerns, we can hear that feedback and address it as needed. So I just wanted to double check. Does this, what we have outlined here, do we feel like this is enough to be able to evaluate any proposals that might be able to come in? Does this give us all the information that we need? Is this everything that we want to know from a potential applicant?
Will we have the
We
opportunity
can
to
always,
call in and speak to those who applied that make maybe the top 5 or something?
What,
we
one
can
question that,
definitely,
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I apologize. That is something that we hadn't talked about, but we can definitely do interviews of the top proposals.
Okay,
We've not done that before, so I don't know if we need it,
yeah,
but
but this is a newfangled thing.
one thing that that stumped us in the past, that's a question that we've always looked at in the past, and I'm not sure how important it is for this, but I just want to pose the question is how many Sammamish residents do they expect to serve? That's not addressed in here, and I don't know. And maybe that's in the outcomes, but the outcomes say
Yeah.
success of programs measured, but we don't specifically talk about Sammamish residents, how many Sammamish residents. So if we want to put that in, because I know that's always a question when we review applications.
I like that,
So
Jody.
I would like to go back to something that Jody had raised earlier about diversity, equity, inclusion, about like, whether it's about having services that are more DEI focused versus like staffing. And I do think, because of the diversity in our community, I do think under staffing 2C, maybe in parentheses, we could say including diversity within staff or something, because I really don't think like not having any diversity within staff would be that
Welcoming.
great, for a community like ours, which is so diverse. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, something.
Yeah, I knew there's something missing there. Yeah, I agree. I mean, something around how will your services address diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging that reflect our community, our diverse community here in Sammamish or something like that. How does that sound, Nishina? Something like that?
Yeah.
Or that is welcoming and that reflect authentic belonging or welcoming of the diversity of our community, Sammamish community, the demographics of the Sammamish community or something like that.
And I don't mean just racial and ethnic diversity, because we have a large Eastern European population. If there aren't, so if
Ethnic.
an organization has, so that's not about racial diversity in that particular instance. It's about like if they have staff who can speak some Eastern European languages, that would be great. So it goes much beyond that when I speak about diversity.
I'm trying to think back to when we did our analysis on our previous process and what were some of the sticklers or the questions that we always came back to, and just making sure that it's reflected in here. Because we can't expect to look at a rubric if we didn't that has things that we're assessing if we don't ask them. You know what I mean? Like we can't say, oh, well, they didn't talk about how they're gonna serve the different demographics, or how they're gonna serve. Well, we do ask about accessibility and equity, or how they're gonna serve, how many Sammamish residents they're gonna serve, and then mark them down if we didn't actually ask them to give us that information. So that's the thing. I think we have to just step back and go, what were those big questions that we expected them to have, and make sure we actually ask them those questions.
I've got a daft question very quickly, commissioners. So when we want to ask them to call out the number of Sammamish residents served, like, what did they say? Like 5,000, like, if this is a new program for all the nonprofits, I'm just curious, like, like, help me understand that. So like, how will they know? And they might say number, it might sound really lovely, but whether they can
Actually do it or not. It's a good point.
But I don't know.
If they're servicing seniors and they have a program, they should know what the population of Sammamish seniors.
Yeah, but they don't know how many they're going to reach, and whether they're
all I can do is estimate, and that's the same thing that they do on other on the other proposals that we get. They don't
Yeah,
have firm
but
numbers.
the other
they
ones, they've done it
estimate-
before, so they can kind of base it on past years.
Mhm.
Well,
This is
They're
they
copying
haven't-
and duplicated, right?
And some of these nonprofits may be involved, we're asking them, you have to have 2 years' experience.
But not in
They-
Sammamish, because we know there's none in, because it's not been done in Sammamish before. Maybe we just make sure that our language around outreach and engagement is clear, and that whatever, that the question, we get that information from that question. And it's a good point, Rita. I've always, I trip up on that one when in our regular process, when they talk about, well, we're only going to serve 3 Sammamish residents, but then it's like, well, if we don't have them come in, then we'll have no services like that in Sammamish. So as long as they have a regional, output, whatever. So anyway, I agree that at some level that question is kind of tough and not that meaningful in terms of a numerical number. But Sten, how are you feeling about that? Are you feeling like you want a solid number?
I don't.
Okay,
I think it's too restrictive. And if it's a new program, who knows? It's a new program to Sammamish. You don't know how many people are going to show up.
so maybe we can ask that the next year.
Yeah, after they've proven themselves or whatever. Because we're already asking them how they're going to measure success of their programs. What matrix are they going to measure it against?
Yeah, true. Okay, I'm good with that. So no number, just asking them about engagement and outreach methods. Okay,
Are we done with this conversation? Any more discussion? I guess we'll see the wordsmithing tomorrow morning. Good luck,
And if
Mike.
you could just, yeah, Rita and I will sit down tomorrow morning and work through some of these comments and make them ready to show off to our council. And then if you have any additional comments, once we send it out, again, please just respond to us individually by the end of the day tomorrow, if possible.
okay. Thanks for working on it in such short notice. Short turnaround, rather.
Absolutely.
We don't have anything called old business or reports from staff. Is there anything else for the good of the order before we go to the agenda topics meeting for next month?
I can do a quick staff report out, or if you wish, or we can skip it. Chair, what would you like to do?
Like to hear what you've been doing.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let's see. So I currently have just completed Mike and I Q3 grant reimbursements. Everyone has surpassed their service units and resident numbers, apart from 2 organizations. ELAP is one of them, Eastside Legal Assistance Program, and Crisis Clinic Teen Link, our problem child yet again. So we haven't paid them for Q3. We've withheld payment, and we're hoping they get their numbers up by Q4. Again, we always say to these organizations, I don't want to save money. The intent of the commission was to give you money, so we've withheld payments. And so hopefully in Q4, they'll be able to bring those back up, their numbers.
Rita,
Yes,
how short are they?
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. If it was I'm not that much of a stickler. If we got audited, okay. So yeah, in a very big way. Let's see what else. Oh, Tent City Forest come to Mary Queen of Peace. I don't know if you're aware of that, next door to City Hall. And last week, council members, a city manager, Mike Sugg, our very own Mike Sugg, went to tour. And we're also following up with King County Regional Housing Authority to ensure that they're receiving case management that they requested. So as staff, we're following up with KCRHA to make sure that happens. Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank came in to update me on their expansion plans. They were initially interested in working with a local church in Issaquah to bring their operations there. But they also conducted an audit and they realized it was going to be too much money. And they also, currently they're in the heart of Issaquah and they have great access to all the public transportation lines. So they're staying put where they are and trying to change things up with downtown in downtown Issaquah. Let's see what else. Volunteer appreciation event is going to be happening in January. We don't have details, but it's by the way, I still have a couple of chairs, those stools that someone hasn't picked. Remember the backpack stool thing? I've still got 2 in my cubicle. Who hasn't picked theirs up from last year? Nishina, did you get, Commissioner Mir, did you get one of those? It's
I don't think so.
oh my gosh, Commissioner Nishioka.
I have mine.
Okay. Commissioner Heilman?
I do.
Gano?
I have mine. Yep.
Commissioner Gano?
I have a spare and I would like to
but-
get rid of both of them if I
Oh
could.
my goodness. Don't say that. Commissioner Bottenberg, do you have one of those fabulous all-encompassing MacGyver backpack
Yes.
straw? Yeah.
After I failed the ribbon bow on the roof.
Oh,
yes.
okay. There you go. Right. And we're also in the process of notifying providers of awards. It's a lovely time when you tell people we fully funded you, and not so lovely when you explain to them that you haven't funded them. So we're currently in the process of that and should get those letters out to folks by the end of the week. And we would also, Mike and I would like to share with you guys an appreciation of, oh God, let's see if I can do this, Mike. Goodness gracious, hold on. Mike's like cringing, thinking, oh my goodness. Okay, how do I do a scare? Okay, hold on one moment. So we would like to, okay, Mike, share screen. Okay, share screen. Fabulous. And where is it? Oh, ha, 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 ha. Just wait. Okay, share screen, share. Oh my goodness. And we found something that we think is quite delectable and we like to share it with you, our commissioners. And I just want you
Oh
to
my
all-
God, I've
It's-
seen this.
Okay, it's snowing outside. I hope you have a hot cocoa with marshmallows, but okay, let's make sure the volume is up. Okay, and it's quite delightful. And we did this purposely. This was done for the commission. We hired high-end, top-end actors to do this. Okay, here we go.
At the North Pole, getting ready for Christmas. Now's the time for you to get the perfect Christmas.
Santa sees a lot of Christmas trees. You told me the freshest trees are from the Sammamish Rotary Tree Lot.
It's true, they're fresh, they're high quality, still right here in Washington.
I don't know great Christmas trees to get your perfect Christmas tree.
And remember, all proceeds from the sales go right back into the community.
We and everyone at Sammamish Rotary wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Very
Oh my
sweet.
goodness. No, sorry. Here you go. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, oh my God, what is that?
Joyce, you're doing the wreaths as well, right?
What?
Actually, we rode on a fire engine to get to the ribbon cutting on Friday. It was really exciting. However, it's nicer when the words come out at the same time that the mouth is flapping, So there was something that was delayed in that. It's so funny. Anyway, there were a lot of outtakes.
Very sweet.
Thanks, Rita.
Mrs. Claus.
Okay, Mike and I have to say, we were just so impressed by just, you look like, seriously, Central Casting is coming to get you. And Mike and I are your agents because it was so lovely. It was just so effortless and lovely and it warmed the coggles in my heart. So it was quite lovely.
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
We have 2 members that come off next year. Have they reapplied? I hope. No
I
comments?
believe they're on the call right now.
No comment? What's that little smile?
I haven't reapplied. What about you, Jody?
Oh, no. Are we done? Is our term over
Yeah,
at this end of this year?
yeah, we want you back. Hello.
Oh, gosh, no. I did 2 rounds already. 3 rounds, 2 or 3
So
rounds.
what?
I think that's a lot. Time for some new blood.
So you're gonna throw your experience just to the wind.
When is this whole process happening?
It's happening currently, and the deadline is in December. Let me.
I can't believe
find
we
that
did
out.
3 years already. 3 more years. That went by fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
Please
I'm done. I
reconsider.
did 6 years.
Please reconsider.
I think about it, but no. Do we have other
Please.
applicants?
We haven't seen anything as yet because we've got, I think,
Okay.
like another 2 weeks before the deadline.
Okay.
I've seen it advertised on the city website for about a month at least.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys get some good candidates.
You get- What? You don't love us no more.
I
Okay.
love you. It's
No,
been
it's all right. We
years.
understand. We understand. You want a divorce. I understand.
Oh, well, we can keep, well, let's move on.
Okay, how about the next meeting agenda topics to be determined?
Does
Um,
that mean if I don't reapply, I'm not invited to the January meeting? I'm not a commissioner in January.
Technically, you would be, Mike, am I right? Technically, the January meeting, yes, and it will be February where new
Oh, okay.
commissioners come
Got
on.
it.
Is that right,
That's
Mike?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Okay.
So Chair, Mike and I were wondering, so we have a December, I know we had this scheduled, we have a December meeting, and we were
14th.
just wondering on the 14th,
Mhm.
and we're wondering if you would still like to have that meeting on the 14th.
Any agenda ideas from anybody? End of year report or anything? Plans for the new year with panels? Or wait till,
Yeah, I think as staff, like as far as the 2023 calendar will go, I think that will sort of more likely come at the end of December or January, which we've traditionally done. Because I know in January we'll obviously discuss the RFP with the senior service programming. So it's from February onwards.
If we don't have the meeting, I won't lose any sleep.
What's the date of the January meeting?
It's the 14th.
The 14th. Okay.
it will be the 11th. December is the 14th. I don't hear any agenda items, so I think maybe we can pass by unless the council wants to send something back to us to work on.
I make a motion at this time to not hold a December meeting unless council asks us to.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Call the vote for the not holding a December 14th meeting unless we're called back by the council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Rita and Mike know where to find us.
Don't we normally have a holiday thing for all the volunteers? No?
That's the January thing.
That's January.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
January. Okay.
Yeah, so traditionally, Commissioner Nishioka, it was always prior, like, before like Thanksgiving or Christmas, but this year they're doing something in January. I'm not quite sure what though.
Okay. Got it.
Like in person at Sahali or something fun?
Oh, that would be so fun. but I don't think so. But don't quote me. I'm not in
Okay.
parks. Yeah.
Didn't they have a wreath making thing
Yeah.
one year?
That's where I
Was
feel.
that last year?
Yeah.
Last year it was so cold, Commissioner
I
Gunnar,
know.
my fingers were going to drop off, and
I
yeah.
didn't go. I showed up and picked up whatever it was you were giving away.
The
And
MacGyver
sweet
chair, the
and
MacGyver stool. Yes.
Like I said, if anybody wants them, more than happy to donate it. Rita, I even think I might have a fanny pack that you love.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Commissioner Mayor, remind me, I'm gonna have to get that MacGyver stool to you for sure.
That's one of those that if you sit down, you can't figure out how to get up.
It
least
is
at my
rather
age.
difficult. There's no arms
No. You have to roll with it.
and it's so darn low.
It's
It's
a
for the kids.
backpack. It's a backpack. It's so
Is that what it
multifunctional.
is?
Yeah, you can put it on your back, and if you want to sit down, you can have a sit down and
Now get up.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
Rita is like marketing it, but like we're not getting any endorsements for other. Some other.
I know. Thank you so much. I mean, please. I mean,
Nishina, if you want two, I'll be glad to.
I'm just out of curiosity. I would like to see what this monstrosity is.
They're a pretty color.
Yeah, the cup was nice. Remember when we got that beautiful cup and
I still use that cup,
yeah,
and I don't know what we're gonna get this time around.
we got that
Oh.
nice inscribed breadboard.
We'll probably get a beer cozy or something.
all good things come to those who wait. But I was not part of the selection committee.
I know.
Just saying. Okay.
Well, I liked it when I got that plant, that bulb that grew into a flower without watering it. We should do that again.
How are people
Okay.
getting all these things? I never got anything. Anyway.
Well, if you show up to the banquet, Rita
Oh,
will buy you some wine.
okay.
Poor Rita. Okay, the last thing on the agenda is the adjournment. Anybody in favor of an adjournment?
No,
I move.
Okay, motion. Well, we really don't need a second. We'll call it. The meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:20 something.